Okay. And the name of your horse is Rena?
Rani. Rani?
Rani.
Yeah,
Rani. Okay.
yes.
Tina and Rani.
Her name
Okay.
is Ran, and in English, in Iceland, they pronounce it Roan. And I was like, I'm
Uh,
not going to run around and call her Roan. Spanny,
you say that
fit
very
her.
well.
Oh, thank you.
And she is Icelandic, right?
She's like 100 pure Icelandic. Yeah.
Okay. And I will share the screen. I have your videos pulled up, and I pulled up the GoPro one as well. So if we have,
Perfect.
I pulled up the two links that you sent me, I think are on YouTube, and then the one from the GoPro.
Yeah.
So we'll look at all of those. And before we look at the video, you did send me some information about you and her. And is there any like main issue you want to make sure we address today? Any burning questions or big issues?
It's her right hind is not functioning well. She basically lifts it. Let me think. Goes out, turns in when she lands.
Oh, so it swings out. You get like a
It swings out.
half circle movement.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a better way to explain it, quicker.
And it's actually called a swinging leg lameness. When
Okay.
the leg doesn't track straight forward behind the hoof of the front leg,
Right.
but she only does that on the right hind, not the left hind.
Correct.
Okay.
When I got her, her training was when she was young. They train them early, and all they train is tilt.
Yeah.
So they sit on it, hold them back, and kick them in the rear. And the promotional video I have from her, it's horrible because all she did is like, it's
Yeah,
very tense.
it's unfortunately common with almost all gaited breeds. And I work with a lot of gaited horses that have either blown up or become lame
Yeah.
just because they use a lot of leverage and drive them faster forward than they can actually balance. And then they sort of balance them back on the bit, which
Yeah.
over the long
Doesn't,
term isn't going to
yeah.
help.
So when I got her, I said, I'm not going to ride her. I'm not going to put her in a bit. I'm not going to force her to go kick her forward and hold her back. I wanted to give her, what is this going on? Anyway, we can talk in between.
Okay, and so I have two videos. I have
Yeah, this one,
pre-play. One is riding. This is the GoPro one, but I have this one where I think you're working with her before you ride, and then one where
yeah,
you're riding.
right. One is before I start anything, just to loosen her up. I found that if I play with her before we start anything, she's in a much better physical and mental stage. So this is just usually she likes to chase me.
Hmm.
So it's offering her to, okay, let's run a little bit, loosen up your legs, not the way I want it, but the way you feel comfortable.
That's awesome.
And
Yes.
so
And
that's
you
what we're
said
doing.
you do a lot of Liberty work with her, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
I prefer Liberty over lines because I just don't like to be attached to anything.
Hmm.
But with a long reining, I think I can handle that. And that video is a
Yeah.
little choppy too.
It's okay. Yeah. And it's actually sometimes not the worst thing when it pauses and catches a little bit because it puts it sort of in a slow motion.
Now, all the
And
GoPro video.
I'm
Go
just
ahead.
kind of watching that right hind. So she's a little bit stiff on both hind legs. And
Right.
even though that was at the walk, let me go back just a smidge. It almost looks like her left hind leg, maybe not as obviously, but also has a bit of that same outward motion. Yeah, just a little. But you notice it more on the right hind, correct?
Right, definitely. And
Okay.
when I look from her from the front, her left hind tracks pretty well up.
Okay. I don't
But
know
she's
why.
extremely stiff.
Yeah, she's
Go ahead.
stiff in both hind legs.
Yes.
And I just made my cat move. I don't know why. My cat likes to sit between my laptop and my Wi-Fi, and I think sometimes it runs interference. So just watching her walk up again, you can see the right hind doesn't stride forward much at all, but the left hind has a little bit of outward movement to it as well. So I would say getting her more engaged as well as more straight, a little straighter would definitely be where she could build up some more balance.
I've
And you
been
have,
working on, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I've been working on straightness instead of doing the circles with originally what I learned or thought I was doing the right way with hind end engagement, like swinging the hind end out with like a door. I changed this one and try to get her straight on a circle.
Okay. And then I actually just released a podcast on that on Facebook. But what do you mean by straight on a circle through the midline?
Okay, so try her neck is often tilted
Mm-hmm. Twisted.
and twisted. Yeah, not
Mm-hmm.
tilted. She can do a little pull, but it's kind of twisted and she's left hand heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was trying to what and then she's very stiff throughout the back, but she's able to go from her neck like this lateral bending,
Mm-hmm.
that infamous lateral bending. She's really good at that.
She can do it
So
to
I
the
try to keep
left.
her. She can do
Sorry.
to the left interference.
No, YouTube. I might have to, let me close this one out. Somehow I lost the, ugh, I hate it when it does that. Let me go to the other video. And was the GoPro one also groundwork?
The GoPro a little groundwork, and then I jumped on her. And I usually this is the GoPro's 11 minutes. I don't do everything in 11 minutes usually. It was kind of a rush throwing things together so you get an idea of her moving, me moving, us together moving, just the overall idea.
Okay. I'm just trying to find, there we go. I don't see where to make it full screen.
On the bottom right, there should be
Uh,
I don't know what you're playing on it. You should be able, well, you're in the
whoops.
computer, right? That's
Yeah, it's just, let me turn my sound down a little. I'm trying to figure out where to mute it. I'm just not familiar with it. There we go. So I'm afraid if I turn the sound down on my computer, I don't see where to mute the video.
oh, okay. There are
I
three,
see where to copy the link, share the media.
huh?
Uh,
Because I send it to you.
wait, there we go. I found everything. It was just, I just had to scroll down a little. Okay, so
Okay.
let me turn off the sound and try that again.
And I think you can actually on the bottom hand right, the little the
Yep,
four
I can make it
thingy there.
bigger.
I think it's
Yep,
bigger.
there
And
we
I think you
go.
can slow it down and fasten it.
Yeah, no, the quality's much better. And
Okay.
YouTube is funny. If I don't stop it before the video ends, it'll bring up another random video or a commercial,
Oh
and
yeah.
then I lose it.
Okay, I got to take my glasses off. I'm so close to it.
So I'm just going to point out something as she comes around that corner.
Yep.
Kind of as I see it, I'll point it out.
Good.
Um, so watching, I like the one thing you have going with her that is fantastic is she's really calm, she's really connected to you, and she's
Hmm.
very relaxed and attentive. So all of that is part of what I work with that I call making sure the horse is in the learning frame of mind. And a lot of times when we have behavioral issues, it's because the horse is in a sympathetic fight flight state. And I don't see that with her, even when you're playing with her and that kind of thing. So I kind of am in my mind, check the box. You have that part going in spades. And then as she comes around this turn, when she walks up, and just here, if you watch, can you see my little arrow?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you're working with her on the ground, especially like with a bareback pad on, you'll see the movement of the bareback pad that will tell you a lot about what she's doing with her spine and her
Oh,
back muscles.
good.
Because, you know, people who complain about it slipping or loose girth or want, you know, need extra flocking, I go, that is the horse's back. That is because of the way the horse is using the back.
Oh,
So
good.
we don't see it a lot here, but just as she steps, here is her right hind forward and her left hind back. And I'm going to try to kind of play and pause, right? Here's the left bend. And just notice how the bareback pad sort of tilts in to the
It
left.
rotates.
Yes. So
Yeah.
what that is a function of the horse's spine called rotation. So in our bodies, when we twist like this, left and right, that's rotation. If we do this and bend side to side, that's lateral bending. Rotation is not talked about in any traditional training or classical training at all, but it's one of the spinal functions that's always been there.
Yeah.
And when she overbends her neck to the left, it like bending and twisting are kind of interlinked. It's very hard to bend without excessive twisting.
Okay.
And so when she bends her neck like that, you can see she also sort of twists the barrel. She
Hmm.
pushes the ribs out a little, and the I'm just going to call it, if I refer to it as a saddle, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah. Yeah.
saddle goes low on the left and a little high on the right.
Yep.
So
I
you
see that
see it
now.
through the whole barrel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I usually don't put the bareback pad on, but I put it on for just because I was going to ride later. So I might use it.
It will actually help you develop your eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's very hard. We focus a lot on what the head and neck are doing, or maybe the front legs, or maybe the strides of the hind legs, because those more mobile parts of the horse's body are easier for us to see. But the
Yeah.
heart of the matter, the most important part of the horse, we have to learn how to see it, but it's clear once somebody points it out. But we need to know what the spine is doing here through the barrel and what the
Yeah.
pelvis is doing.
Yeah.
And so where I paused it again, do you see if we kind of drew a line from the tail head up to the withers? You can also see on this sort of left turn that her whole right side of the pelvis is a good 2 inches higher than the left. So do you see the
Yeah.
tilt through
I
here?
see it on her tail too,
Yeah.
because the tail goes.
Everything's kind of
Yeah.
capsizing that way.
Yeah. She's
So,
moving with her hips, not with her legs.
right. So the legs generate force, but the pelvis, spine, and skull manage force.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make
It should,
sense?
it should manage. Yes.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so this issue you're describing, I see it perfectly. And it's what we call a left-handed horse. It's that common. And what it is she's basically restricting the movement of the right hind leg because of this twist,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the right side of the pelvis is higher, the left side's lower, which means the right hind leg can't come through because the rib cage is blocking it and the twist is blocking it. And so the body weight, the right hind tends to get very muscularly tight and restricted. And then the left front, opposite, diagonally, tends
Mm-hmm.
to be overloaded and
Yeah.
will usually be the first leg to show any kind of concussive lameness.
Okay.
And so just kind of watch the top of the bareback pad and across the top of the pelvis, either side of the tail as I hit play again. And you'll see as soon as she's moving how unlevel that is.
I
Yep.
have a hard time seeing it. I have to
It's
get
a
so
little bit
close.
far away, but that's why I kind of pulled it on the corner. It's much harder to see farther away. And it's
When I play,
really
go ahead. I'm sorry.
exaggerated. It's exaggerated when they bend the neck. So there's no way to overbend the neck left or right past sort of the alignment with the upper back and not create a twist.
Okay.
It always goes together. So when she's walking with her neck straight, you don't see the barrel rolling and the pelvis tilting,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That's actually what would encourage her to use her hindquarters a lot, is keeping that neck aligned to the back. And to me, that's the main purpose of using long reins or riding reins. I'm never using them to restrict the length or the use of the neck and head. I'm always using them to stabilize the skull and the cervical spine in a proper alignment to the basically the thoracolumbar spine, but all the way back to the tail. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab my reading glasses.
Okay.
That might help me. Sorry. Oh, I can see now.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Okay, it's
it's a
better.
little bit far away, but you can kind of get, if we just look at Rainy,
Rainy. Yeah, it's
Rainy.
okay.
Okay, if we just look at her overall posture, what I really like is that she's so calm and connected to you that she really does keep her neck quite long. And that's part of the relaxation response, where I think you might have maximized some of your unsupported work is that she also can't quite control the twisting and the looseness through her midline.
Yeah.
That's where you might have to help her with your body and with some, lines or reins or something like that. But she's so you do a beautiful job with her. And to me, this is a huge part of preparing the body to change habits of coordination. Because if the horse is defensive, if the horse isn't connected to you, if the horse doesn't feel safe, like all of this beautiful communication you have with her and her willing cooperation, that's what, when you go to help her maybe improve the coordination, and I focus mostly on the spinal functions because that changes the whole body.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So I look at how is the horse using the skull, spine, and pelvis, and that's how you get the legs working correctly. You alleviate excess weight, or you get another one to start functioning again. All of that is done through the use of the spine and pelvis and head. And I mean, you've just got a lovely thing going with her. And so that's what you want to basically build on. And a lot of traditional training, I can see why you don't like using the tools because it would ruin what you have going.
Yeah. And I think she really prefers that my idea of being with her.
Hmm.
She has improved a lot since I got her. Um, so I understand that I have to use some rein contact. I haven't ridden her since last year, basically. And I've been working a little bit on straightness, and then I have a coach in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
and she was helping me a little bit, seeing how her back is twisting instead of moving.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried some abduction exercises
Mm-hmm.
at Liberty, and Rani does really well. She's picking up quickly, and but I could tell this was the first time I rode her since last year, and there was a difference with her riding her. She was Usually she goes, she just likes to go in a circle. This
Mm-hmm.
time she was just really responsive to a little bit moving of my hands and my seat, my
Excellent.
body. So something has
Excellent.
changed. But
No,
go ahead. I'm
it's
sorry.
that's exactly what good groundwork should do. Is basically I look at all groundwork as a simulation of what the horse needs to learn to safely, comfortably, happily carry a rider. And so when you talk about straightness and you're talking about the adduction and abduction of the limbs, how are you achieving straightness? Like how do you kind of define that or
So
look for that?
when I when I do the Liberty walk, I
Hmm.
try to keep her neck, instead of bending to my side all the
Hmm.
time or bending on the other side. I try to keep it straight. When I give her treats, I try to keep her head straight without being fixed. I don't want a fixed head,
Exactly.
but I like to have a straight head where she can move a little bit left. And what I noticed or realized through to the girl in Australia is how the head actually moves in more of an figure eight pattern. And
It
I watched,
depends.
yes,
Hmm.
and I watched with Randy, and when she does lift her front leg, she lifts her head up. And when she moves her front left leg, she lifts it up as well, but not as much. So I've been paying a little bit more attention to that. And for me, straightness is not straightforward stiff, is more forward in a straight line. And
Okay.
she's not balanced, but that's the straightness. I would like to have straightness as in forward or straight and balanced, but
Yeah. So let me give you my definition of it because
okay.
everybody in training has sort of this different way of defining it.
Mhm.
And I go straight into the body. So what straightness means to me are the combination of two spinal functions working correctly. One is, which sounds silly, but we take it for granted, is the proper alignment of the spine, vertebra to vertebra, sort of
Mhm.
nose to tail. And the reason that alignment, which we gain alignment by reducing lateral bending, and
Mhm.
the spine is not geometrically straight as far as the bones go. But what happens when you line up sort of C1 at the back of the skull, and there is the mechanically accurate alignment all the way back to the sacrum, it interestingly gives a feel of an absolute broomstick straight line of force. So we don't feel any kind of side to side noodly, wiggly movement when the alignment is actually where it should be and where it's stabilized. And those are your core muscle groups to prevent excess movement through the vertebra. Now, alignment is one half of it, and then rotation is a separate function that we just talked about, but the two sort of influence each other. So the if they excessively bend laterally, then they also typically twist in the opposite direction. It's
Mhm.
called, so if you, and you can even put your hand on her back and feel if you kind of bend her neck around to the left, the back will twist and roll to the right.
Opposite side, yeah.
Hmm. And I suspect with what you're describing between the right hind and the left front, and what we just looked at with the saddle pad sort of going into the left on a left turn, is that she has a habit. So if you think in a horse, the long dorsal spinous processes, the long bones
Mhm.
of the vertebra, the way we feel excessive twisting or a habitual twist is the bones of the spinous processes are not upright. They're sort of waving side to
Tilted.
side, tilting.
Okay.
So that's what makes the barrel roll from our perspective, and it's what makes the hindquarter tilt. And the way she went around the corner without any influence tells me her habit is the dorsal tips of the spine are kept a little bit over to the left, and that she holds a little bit of an invisible left bend as a habit. And so what that's doing, because we can't always see it, but we can feel it. So if she can look straight and still have, just like people can, we can look straight visually, but still have a slight left bend, left twist going on as a habit of how we coordinate our body. Does that
Because
make
if you have a
sense?
left, yeah, if you have a left bend and a right bend, it appears straight because they equal it up in a sense. The
Well,
whole
what,
thing looks straight, but it's not.
right, because the muscles will compensate. And
Okay.
so that's why part of what tells me she has a habitual left bend and dorsal tips left on the rotation is starting with what you already described. You know she's restricted on the right hind,
Hmm.
right? And you know she overloads the left front, right? And she has to sort of lift her head a little to really use those front limbs. And so it tells you, and it's easy enough to fix, but if you don't understand sort of what her habit is or pattern, then it's easy to say she's straight because she sort of looks straight. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
even if she's in a straight line
Hmm.
and she looks straight, she still has more of a left is left heavy and right light,
Yes,
which it's like that leg somehow that leg doesn't get the message from the brain what to
exactly.
do.
Well, what it is it's just a habit. We don't
Hmm.
ever know why the habit started. Don't know, don't
Doesn't
care.
matter. Yeah.
But if we're trying to either rehab horses or develop their potential, that's exactly the straightness I pay attention to. And
Yeah.
lining up everything you've done by just getting the neck to look visually straight was tremendously helpful to this horse. Just that alone is huge because, there's still the main thought of circles and turns mean turning the midline into a banana or a curve.
Yes.
And I go, no, no, it should be dead straight and level, right? So we would see, even on a tight turn, that bareback pad would not roll high low. It would come around a turn level side to side. And the same with the pelvis.
Hmm.
And so by working on the adduction and abduction, I go, that's sort of in the neighborhood, but it's looking at things a little bit backwards. Because if I'm focused on the adduction or abduction of the legs and it's throwing the spine out of alignment or creating a rotation through the spine, then I'm not going to achieve my ultimate goal. And so what I look at is how do I keep the midline straight front to back and level across the barrel and the pelvis during a turn, and the horse figures out the correct adduction and abduction through the legs if we stabilize the spine to be straight front to back and level, not
I,
twisting or rolling.
I think I have there's a there's not saying I mean the thought of a straight back does not sit well with me. Now when you say level and you make this movement, that makes sense to me. Straight to me, like a broomstick, you said, it's almost like it can't move. But you're
No,
saying,
not that it can't move. So if you do in your body what she's doing, if
It
you
doesn't do this. If
uh
I twist, it's this. But if I, my arm can still be straight, but I can still go this way.
absolutely.
So
Yes.
it's
So
flat.
it's not restricting mobility at all. It's like when you and I are sitting here talking,
Yeah.
our head and neck are in alignment with our torso, all the
Mm-hmm.
way down to the seat bones, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's alignment.
Okay.
Now, you can also, and what it does is it creates a sense of vertical force, even in our body, right? It's what keeps us sort of balanced over gravity. Like if you're getting your sea legs, you have to keep realigning your head, neck, lower spine, mid spine over each other. That's the alignment with
Mm-hmm.
the forces of motion. So there's a lot of wiggle room in there, right? It's not when I say broomstick, we're not locking it into a frozen use.
Right. And that's what kind of the broomstick and the knot and the straight broomstick and straight sounded, or that's what it is in my head. It's don't move, but it still has to move. But when you make this,
Hmm.
the flat, it has the back should be flat, but moving.
And the neck should not be bending visually.
Okay.
Otherwise, you can't keep the back flat.
Yeah. Okay. I
It's
got that.
impossible. It's impossible to keep the horse's back and hindquarters level if the neck is actually bending like that. And
Okay.
and and people think we feel lateral bending in the barrel. I go, we don't. The only place we can really affect alignment and lateral bending is through the head and neck. What we affect as a rider, and even with the long reins, is more to do with the rolling, tilting, twisting use of the spine, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so and you might feel this in your body. So if you kind of are balancing your head over your pelvis, there's a vertical force up and down that
Yeah.
your muscles are supporting. So now if you just bend your rib cage a tiny bit, not to the point that I can see it, and
Mm-hmm.
then you twist, like just now, I'm bent and twisted, but I don't look that different, right? But
Okay.
you start to feel when the bones are not in the proper alignment through the midline, the
Mm-hmm.
muscles instantly have to start working harder,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the
Yeah.
internal weight distribution is no longer equal and the muscle use is no longer equal. So that's the importance of the alignment. And when I say broomstick straight, I mean more like an invisible line of force
Okay.
that connects the head to the tail.
Okay. Got that. That
Okay.
I mean, I figured you didn't mean stiff broomstick, but I couldn't get it out of my head
Yeah.
to put that in more of a less.
No, I get it because most people are thinking in terms of body parts, and I'm talking about invisible lines.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So it's that connection of the entire spine working as one unit when it is in
Okay.
alignment, right?
And
And
the,
if we look at the vertebra, even in a horse, there's not a huge range of motion in the joints between the vertebra,
mhm.
which tells us the spine should not be moving a lot. And yet we have this concept that we want to supple the horse by having all this sort of fluctuation moving midline. And I go, that actually destabilizes the body. So the skull and spine, when I talk about straightness, it's that invisible connection, head to tail, straight from front to
Mhm.
back, and level side to side.
I feel that now.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's both of those things.
Yeah.
One plus one equals straightness. You can't have just one and have a
One.
straight horse.
Okay.
And that's what I see in traditional training where we've really missed the boat. is nobody considers the levelness factor. They're only talking bend and straight front to back.
Yeah, I like the level idea. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's all about levelness as part of straightness. And so what I see as you're riding her and just keeping the neck, everything you've done with just telling her, can you do that with your head in between your front legs?
Can
The
I
re
do it?
No,
Oh,
her. Like whenever
oh,
you are working with her on straightness in the past, what you've done is go, can you just keep your head and neck between your front legs? And just that alone is a huge help to horses because their head and neck are the unsupported sort of pieces of
parts.
their
Yeah.
body, right? And so they use their head and neck two ways. One is that alignment is part of stabilizing the midline or the center of the body, which is what all the limbs organize around.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They also use it, and this is why I get why you don't like the rein contact, is they also use it as a sort of stabilizer
Yeah.
when if they lose stability through the back and hindquarters, they adjust the neck.
To their need to be balanced.
Yes.
To
So the
their need to be
same,
balanced.
yes.
Yeah.
So the way they use it kind of more like an appendage because it's part of the axial skeleton, part of the
Mm-hmm.
skull, spine, pelvis, but they also need to use it the same way we use our arms.
For
So
balance. Yeah.
yes, if I am losing a little stability through my spine or my core or my feet or my pelvis, I can sort of adjust my arms until I get my balance.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we can't restrict the neck when it goes up, down, in, out. But what we can do is ask her not to bend it left to right.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, which is hard for her and for me sometimes,
Yeah,
especially when it goes around my odd corners here.
yes, yes. But to stabilize the back and hindquarter, sort of, and what I look at is I never try to prevent the mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I prevent the mistake, it turns into holding and stiffness, and
Yeah.
the horse doesn't learn anything. So, what I would look at is whether you're on the long reins or riding, anything connected to her head, you see her or feel her go to bend the neck left or right, and you only use the opposite rein to say, could you put it straight? Does that make sense?
Right. Yes.
And if, because rein contact is the hardest to teach and it's the most abused part of all of our contacts, but all I really do with the reins is try to help them maintain that alignment of the head and the neck bones to the center of the back. And I still allow them to make the mistake. And then I say, hey, could you put your head back? And they make the mistake. And I say, with the opposite rein, one at a time, could you put your head back? But I'm never keeping the reins short. They can put their head up or down or in or out as much as they need.
Mm-hmm.
Does that
I
make
did see
sense?
that. Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the way they choose to use the head and neck is actually really good information about what's happening through the back and hindquarter when they're free to use it the way they want.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when she does bend the neck, it's because the back already rolled and the pelvis already tilted, and then she bends the neck in order to stabilize.
Mm-hmm.
But it happens sort of back to front. Yeah, and you see she does 90% of it perfectly. And so the light reins you're using just enough to say don't bend the neck. If she bends the neck to the left, your right rein says, "Hey, could you put it straight again?" And if she bends the neck to the right, you say, "Hey, could you just kind of visually line it up here?"
Okay.
But
I'm
what you
not very, I'm sorry.
Go
I'm
ahead.
not educated. I'm not educated in rein, like left rein do this, right rein does that. So I picked up a little bit from your long reining, because long reining is not, to me, sitting on a horse and holding them tight. That freaks me out. So
No, and
I don't
you,
have a very good feel, and that's part of it because I'm very strong-handed and upper body handed or upper body strength. So I hesitate to hold the reins to hurt her or confuse her or do something wrong.
no, you're doing it beautifully. Because I could hardly, I mean, she's dark and it's a little far away. I'm going to try to back up the video here a second to look at what we were just looking at. So where I paused the video before and her neck was a little up and a little tight, and then you
Mm-hmm.
start walking her around, and it looks like you have what's called a side pull. It's a bitless bridle.
Yeah, it's a bitless bridle.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, with a rein on either side.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're already doing what I am talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, you never want a tight rein that's going to restrict the head and neck moving,
And
lengthening, or
yeah.
shortening. But what you're doing very gently, I don't know why this is taking a while. What you're doing beautifully, like what you have is you have a very good natural vertical use of your body on her. Right? You're a tiny bit heavy in the seat. We can talk about that, but your arms are very soft. Your reins are very light contact, very loose, and that's exactly perfect.
Good.
Yeah. And what I'm saying is when you see her, if you were riding, I tend to look at where I'm going between the horse's ears,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the knobby bones right between the horse's ears. If I need to help a horse really stabilize the neck, then I'm working between the reins one at a time, not both,
Mm-hmm.
and only giving enough rein pressure to line the ears up with my seat bones because
Okay.
my seat bones are straddling the back,
Yeah.
right? And so you don't want to hold them there. If you hold them there, it misses the point.
That's too tight. That's too stiff. That's too
Yeah,
static. Yeah.
yeah, and it doesn't teach them anything because you're doing the work.
Yeah.
Right? So when she has a little bit of a bend through the neck, you give the aid until the head is back in front of your seat bones, and then you loosen the rein.
Okay.
And then you wait for the next bend of the neck.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you give her no support, like if you never correct it, then it would be very hard for her to figure that out with a rider or even without a rider because it's a very mobile part of their body. So
Yeah.
it does help.
I made the mistake looking back, it maybe not a mistake, but what I did, because I hated the way she was written, all
Hmm.
tight up and all that. I said, I will let her, even when I rode her a little bit, she could go anywhere she wants to. If
Yes.
she was wobbly, I just dealt with it. If she want to go forever in a circle, I went with a circle. And sometimes I said no, but just I wanted her to be find her own balance,
Hmm.
but which was great thought, but I wanted her to find her balance instead of me helping her to find the balance. I wanted her to do all that.
Exactly. No, and
So
classically, we call that self-carriage, but you never see anybody doing it.
yes, but I didn't help her to find that support. I'm just now realizing it, that I, with the reins, I can help her a little bit. I don't have to be as tight, but I don't have to throw the reins away all together either.
Nailed it.
And that's what I
That's
did.
exactly my point, is that there is a middle place because I went, as a kid, I was a competitive rider. You control everything. Then I did natural horsemanship where you do nothing. And I go, no, there's a place in between.
Yeah.
There's a
I'm finding
place,
that now.
yeah. Because without guiding at all, we're kind of asking them to figure out something and making it difficult to do it at the same time.
Yeah.
And
It
so
she can work, she can run, move perfectly fine without me around, without a
Mhm.
rider. I can see her running, bucking, kicking when we do the fun stuff.
Yeah.
She does it, she moves better when we play than when we work. So I know she is.
Well, and the thing I'd like to help you with is not to turn work into a four-letter word, but to make the
Yes,
work the play,
yes,
right? And what
yes.
I find is when we start to help horses, because everything I've learned about the mechanics and working with the psychology is based on the inherent anatomy of the body needs to be used a certain way in order to maintain healthy use, right?
Hmm.
That to me is what balance is. So that's why when I talk about straightness, I'm talking about two spinal functions, and it's a specific feel when we get it. And when we get it, the horses love it. And the reason they love it is because even if they couldn't figure it out on their own, we're helping them find ease of motion. We're helping them find more comfort, right? A healthier way of going, a more comfortable and efficient way of coordinating movement. And that's the whole reason I do what I do.
Yeah, but they don't need us to move in their way being balanced. They just have to change. We have to help them figure out a different way of moving because we want to ride them.
Yes and no, because even baby horses already have that have never been ridden. I get on them for their first ride, and I go the same way all people, when we go from crawling to walking, we develop little habits of how we use ourselves. And the same is true with horses. And that doesn't mean we're using our, like for every horse and every rider, it takes a little bit of training to really understand how to coordinate the body according to the design. It's, we all figure out how to function, but we could also use a little bit of help improving how we do it.
Okay, I see that.
Yeah. And it's
And
nothing, it's nothing that the horse did wrong or it's bad. I go,
no,
it's like we're all left-handed or right-handed, even though we both have two hands. We all have two hands.
right. I think in the wild she would be perfectly fine surviving without, if she would be back in Iceland and never been
Yes.
written, just be a pasture pet, she would be perfectly happy and healthy, even though she might be moving. I think the only reason horses, it's besides the point, but I think the reason she's moving as strangely is because she was written in the wrong way to begin with.
That certainly does not help,
Yeah,
right? But the thing that's different, like in nature, whether it's Mustangs or the Chinkatink or the Icelandics, what wild horses do that no domestic horse ever has to do is they move an average of 25 miles a day,
yeah,
walking calmly, searching for food and water.
right.
We provide food and water. So we've taken away, and to me, when I'm working on the ground with something like long reins or lunging, it's a place where I can be nature, Mother Nature, and say, you need to keep walking for an hour, but I'm not going to tell you how to do it,
Okay. So we
right?
talking about, yeah, okay.
But if you've taken away, if you've provided food, water, and shelter, you've taken away the natural need for them to move enough to
Hmm.
really use their body well. And so if you look at Mustangs or wild horses, they're beautifully developed. You don't see some of the same problems we see with domestic horses. I
Okay.
go because they move 20, 25 miles every day and they're motivated by eating and drinking.
Okay. See that. Yes.
Yeah. So in the domestic environment, to me, training has to sort of fill that gap.
Okay.
And
See that one. Yeah.
and so that's why a lot of the work I do, especially on the ground, I go, I don't want to tell the horse how to move, but I want the horse to move enough that they learn to be efficient,
Yeah.
that
And
they
you do a
kind
beautiful,
of
You're doing a
Eh,
beautiful job, and I see the results, and that's what, even just watching two of your YouTube videos, I was like, this is the lady I need to talk to. She is the one that can help my horse,
well, and
or
you're
help me to help
asking,
my horse.
your mind is asking all the same questions I asked as well. Because I even got to a point where I went to one of my mentors and I said, should we really be riding horses at all? Like
Yeah.
this is a difficult thing for horses. And he really soothed me that he said, when we are guiding a horse to feel more safe and bonding with us, and we're working with their mechanical coordination in a way that makes movement feel better, more efficient, more sound, more health. He goes, that's the only benefit the horses get from us, is that they can be stronger and healthier with us than they really can be in nature because the need is higher. And I
Yeah.
go, okay, I started to like let go of all of my, existential angst about riding them and went, all right, if I can be helpful, I feel really good about this.
Yes.
Yeah,
And I want to be helpful to her and my other Icelandic who's 28. And I just figured he's a pasture pet, but I started working with him too, grunt work a little bit. And he actually seems to enjoy it too. So,
excellent. No, my 31-year-old mare, if I don't work her every day, all we do is long rein work. And she had colic surgery at 28. She looks terrible right now. She's had a hard couple years. But if I do not work her every day, she comes and finds me.
yeah, it's strange. Rani, when I work with Geesley, she's like, I'm in it. I'm in it. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I think she enjoys the company and she enjoys learning and enjoys pleasing.
Yes.
Um, so there are times,
Otherwise, it would be boring. Like,
yeah,
yeah, you're part of the herd and you can show her things as a human that she might not accidentally discover on her own moving. But I think there's a need for both. I do work that I call unsupported, where the horse
yeah,
has a lot of choice. And then I balance that with work that offers some guidance when they can't quite figure things out or they need to learn something they can't do yet.
okay,
And so there's a balance there where it's not all or nothing. And so I paused it here because I just
yeah,
wanted to point out now in this one, you're tracking right. And you see how your body is a little off to the side?
yeah. I'm actually leaning to the right.
Hmm.
My shoulders are off.
Yeah, so it may be that because we don't always notice it when the horse twists the spine, and she could kind of twist it to the inside. It can change when they change direction. So they can have a different coordination when they go left compared to right. But what I would look for is if you're riding her, you've got two ways you can significantly improve the coordination of her spine and body. And one is, like we talked about, gently guiding the neck and head to stay lined up to your seat bones. And secondly, start to notice because we don't always notice. What I paused this picture for was you can see if I draw a straight line down to the ground, you're tilted off to the right.
Yeah,
And so when our weight shifts like that, it's usually because when the horse twists the spine, if the bones go to the right, then the left side back muscles get very tight and they push us up and the bones pull
yes,
us down, right?
yeah,
So if you could, in this moment, because right now your weight is to the right, your body is to the right, so the left leg has got to be working pretty hard or you would have fallen off.
mhm,
And so if you shift your spine and skull more vertical, you would probably have to ride in this moment with greater than 50% of your body weight down your left leg to
okay,
resist that upward force so that you stay level. You're always level like this, but her back when it does that If you stay level, that means invisibly you're having to shift extra weight left and right.
Right. And when I'm sitting on her, and what I've learned and what I've always believed, and I'm still on the fence, but this is her back, and I sit up here and she rolls, I go with her movement. If she rolls to the right, I go with her. So wherever she goes. And now something is going on in my head that I should be, if she does this, I should actually go a little bit on the other side. She
Yeah.
does that. Instead of moving with her, throwing her more over.
Yes.
So
Because
I
because the unlevelness, when we see the bend or we feel the roll, that is an instability, too much movement through the spine, right? If we go with it, then just like it's like a wave of force that hits our body. And if we were in a canoe, we would not go with it because we would fall over, right?
Mhm.
So if we look at it from just physics, her back, her spine moves too much. It creates a sideward force. If
Yeah.
we go with it, we're adding weight and mass to the problem she's having.
Mhm.
But a lot of people tell you move with the horse, and it feels easy, it feels good, so we love it, we do it, but we actually make our horse's problem worse because we're
Good.
adding our body weight to their body weight.
So I I understand, to maybe not as much as I move with a horse, because I can move I move probably very liberally, and it's not as bad now since I realized a couple things. But we can't be totally quiet. We there is a, isn't there, when the hind leg would go under, isn't there automatically the hind leg goes
It's
forward? There is a movement a little bit, right?
Yes, and so the way it works in our body is if we can keep our primarily our skull, spine, pelvis quietly vertical and minimize movement only through the core and the
Oh,
midline.
I get it. I think I got it now. So we can move with the horse, but we don't have to.
Nobody sees it because
Yeah,
if I
don't
see
move
you
this.
move,
You don't move this
exactly,
way. You move this way.
you invisibly shift weight, change muscle tone. So, like, have you been on a boat where you have to get your sea legs?
No, don't know. But
Okay.
I'm doing it on my couch right now.
Okay.
It's
So basically, if your couch was a horse and it suddenly was pushing you left, right, forward, or back, you could look like you're not moving by just adjusting your muscles and your body weight invisibly inside. So you don't,
Yep,
I
I got it.
no nobody sees the bones moving. And so
Yes.
that's what makes a beautiful rider is, and it's very confusing because if you can't kind of separate your skeleton from your soft tissue and your weight, we move everything together. Either like a stiff rider is still going to shake because they're locked, and a loosey-goosey rider is going to move too much. And so what we do is just what we're asking the horse to do. Keep the bones quiet, keep them in line, keep them quiet, adjust the limbs, adjust the weight, adjust the muscle use.
Got it.
Yeah.
Fluid.
Yeah. And
I
it's
was a wet
very
noodle.
soft. Yeah.
I'm a wet noodle because I don't want to restrict my horse. So I'm a wet noodle riding because I
And
don't want to be that stiff person. But you don't want to be
exactly.
the stiff person, but there's a middle. It's the flow with the horse
Yes.
without being a noodle. Got it.
Yes. So do you see, because you want to move with the horse,
Hmm.
do you see how when she has an issue, when you move with the problem, you add your body to the problem?
Yep.
The way we
Somehow.
Yeah, the
Go
way
ahead.
we guide a horse to balance is I like to think of the movement like a river. I go, the movement starts in the hindquarter and it flows forward underneath us and out the front. That's how their movement flows. And so what I'm doing is channeling the movement. I'm guiding it to have less waves, less splashy, less sort of, big channels and things like that. I'm trying to just quiet the river down the middle, right? And that then the legs take care of themselves. The muscle use takes care of themselves. The head and neck position sort of tells us when we get there. But the movement gets very still under the saddle. And there's no stress. It's just sort of shaping these forces of motion rather than like I think what you saw with her and what I appreciate about you is that you go, I'm not going to do that ugly, restrictive, horrible thing that everybody says you have to do with Icelandics, right? But I
Yeah.
think people think more in terms of body parts. And I go, it's not body parts, it's forces of motion,
Yeah.
right? You can be very soft, but if you can control the stability of your body, because you see, then you have to grip with the legs because your midline is no longer straight or stable. You see that?
Yeah.
And so that makes her movement harder, not
Harder.
easier.
Yeah.
Harder.
Well, you see, I don't want to go down the river smoothly. I want to splash all over.
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
okay, wonderful. Now, this is good. I noticed that this time riding her, I did not move as much with her as I used to.
That's because you worked on straightness, even with what you did with the neck being in front
Right.
of
It's
the torso. That is
one of the,
huge, huge. Because the other thing you've done very well is almost all gaited horses I see at first are completely upside down. Completely like when a horse shortens the neck, like if you think of the people who are tolting their little Icelandics around,
yeah,
their neck is like this short
yeah.
and they're on these bits and their head
Mhm.
is straight up in the air and they're going pell-mell, right?
Yeah.
That is the spine pushing down. That's a
Mhm.
disengaged hindquarter. And the only way they can stabilize their body is to keep tightening the neck. And what you've done by letting her choose her movement, you've really undone her past training. I go, that is huge.
Oh,
It's
good.
huge because I rarely see Icelandics that are this calm with their neck this long and can move in a normal walk without tolting all the time,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
everything you've done, and this is probably why she's so bonded with you and connected, is because you said you figure out you and you left her alone, right?
Kind of that.
And that has done wonders. And where you're at right now is just on the brink of being able to help her go to a place that's maybe better than both of you imagined so far.
Yeah. I was hoping for more, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been on a plateau. And like I said, I came across Steph from Australia, and I really love her because she showed me a lot, made me more aware of a lot of things. And then I came across you, and I messaged her. I said, "Long reining. It's going to be long reining. This chick is great. I need her."
Well, I think even the long reins can get very confusing only because the difference is our body weight is in a different place. So the way we affect the movement and what we feel through the reins is a little bit different from riding to ground driving when we're behind the horse to working on a circle when we're on the inside. So how we feel through the reins gets more confusing when we do it on the long reins, and it's kind of straightforward when we ride. And so I would say if like I think you ride her beautifully and to have an easy bareback ride on her on a loose rein and think about what we've talked about today, you would take her to the next level, I think, with gentle rides at the walk and start to feel what alignment means, what rotation feels like. And the amazing thing is, dynamically, and I sort of discovered this by accident because it just kept happening, is when the back remains level on the horse and she can mostly hold her own neck straight, what happens is all the muscles through the neck, the back, and the hindquarter, the whole top line, they release excessive tension and they lengthen. And so all the muscles, all the way back to the tail, it's not just a long and low posture with the head and neck. It's a release, a lengthening of muscles from pole to tail. That is the result of stabilizing the alignment of the spine and the rotation function. It gives you what I call internal straightness. And the second the horse finds that skeletal stability, the suppleness that goes through the whole back, hindquarter, and neck is amazing. It just starts to let go. And they begin to shift their kind of orientation of movement from the front end to the hind end. They use the back and hindquarters for stability, ideally, and not the neck. But even the sales video you're describing is a horse that was stabilizing through the neck,
Oh,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And all that does is weaken the back and the hindquarter. And
Right,
so what you've done is you've let her figure out her body well enough that she mostly goes with you with a relatively long neck. And when her neck shortens a little and goes up and down, that's because she lost the stability through her back and hindquarter. And
right. Which I
so,
see.
yeah, and so I think if you played with what we talked about for you as a rider, when you ride, you feel, especially bareback. I love riding bareback, and I always ride young horses or tricky horses bareback before I put a saddle on because we feel each other more clearly. And I think with everything you're doing, if you balance yourself and think, I need to be a balanced weight. When she loses her balance, you're counteracting it by keeping your balance.
Yeah,
Does
I've been counterbalanced. Been a wet noodle on the couch while you were talking with my hips and all that. And then I was like thinking about Feldenkrais and moving just a little bit to see what's moving, where it's moving, watching that video. The last 2 minutes, I rode her much better in my
yes,
head, in my body.
yes. And I
Oh,
would
God.
I would start there. I'm still happy to help you with the long reins, and I actually have a workbook on my website. It's only available as a downloadable PDF, but you can print it. And the workbook is called Groundwork.
Okay.
And it has 3 lessons on the long reins. Because the long reins, but it shows some of the other groundwork stuff I do to work on improving the balance. But I would say what you're doing on the ground before you go to the long reins, I think if you feel it as a rider, it will make more sense when you go to the long reins.
So,
Because
d-
you ride very softly, very beautifully, and you're a good rider. You're riding with some of the wrong ideas, but just what we've talked about today, you would ride her differently already.
yeah.
And I think it would you would understand everything through riding much faster. And then the long reins, I think, will be easy for you to learn. It'd be very helpful, but the long reins will be a little bit of a challenge for her. And so I think the easier path, because she's so connected to you, would be to start, quote unquote, the long rein work from her back.
All
So,
right.
because it's the same work, it's the same work. So when we're on the long reins, we're having to feel the subtlety, the subtle changes through our hands and the reins. But when you're riding, it's not subtle. It's obvious. but it's the
Okay.
same issue because the long reins are going to directly address spinal alignment and spinal rotation. And so when you ride, you can do both at the same time. When you do the long reins, if you're ground driving, you're working on alignment. And if you're doing circles on the long reins, you're addressing rotation.
So you saying she does not need to be, she doesn't need the driving reins or the long reins at this point?
It certainly wouldn't hurt her. It would be great. But I think to get you guys pointed in the right direction,
Mm-hmm.
I would do the long reins second and the riding first.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the groundwork I've been doing obviously must have helped her somehow continue my
Oh,
groundwork.
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. So do what you're doing with the groundwork, but even your next ride and email me, check back in with me, let me know how it goes or if you have questions. But those beautiful soft arms you have and those loose reins, you're just going to give a little bit of support sooner, but not heavier and not
Okay.
harder. And you don't
Okay.
hold it. You straighten the neck, let go. Straighten the neck, let go.
That's
Straighten the
I
neck, let go. Right? And
definitely.
and then with your body, when you keep yourself, like I'll tell people, imagine you're standing, right, over the horse because our balance is relative to gravity, to the arena, not the horse,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the horse is the body of motion. It's just motion. And what we're doing is aligning and realigning and adjusting so that our skull, spine, and pelvis and our feet are under in a line like we're standing. Does that make sense? And
I can feel the difference because before it was like either you're a wet noodle or you're a stiff height person perched up on a horse.
yeah,
And I didn't want to be that. So the
yeah,
next choice was be a noodle.
yeah,
But I just through talking to you, there's oh wait a minute. There's something in between.
yeah. So, like, they have these like half balls people can stand on or paddle boards. I use the analogy of water a lot because water helps us understand a flow of movement, right? And you can't control water, but you can channel water, right?
Yes. I
And and we can balance over waves. So if you look at a surfer, it's not a wet noodle, right?
right.
They adjust a lot, but if you look at the head and the spine and the pelvis of a surfer, it adjusts very little, and the arms adjust more, not the middle. And
Yeah, and
so when you get
it's
on her, just find a sensation that feels like you're standing over the ground and stay connected to the ground. Even imagine your feet touching the ground. And then you're going to feel all that movement come through her body. And you're going to know exactly how to shift your weight, how to adjust, how to make these subtle internal adjustments. So somebody watching you thinks you're doing nothing, and inside you're busy, 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 and it's hard.
yeah. Well, instead of supporting Rani's disability, which I've been doing by wanting to be helpful, being a wet noodle, I just have to be like I usually am when I do my stuff. I can stand on one leg and you can try to push me over. I don't push over.
There you go.
So that's I just have to let her move the way she needs to move at this point, and I just have to help her. I can help her moving better by me not helping her to move.
Yes. And what
Yeah.
you just described is exactly perfect. So your ability to resist somebody pushing you if you're standing on one leg, that's how you think about imbalance in the
Yeah.
horse. So when a horse loses balance, they try to push us over on one leg. Either they push us forward, back, left, or right.
Right.
When we adjust and we resist that force, that is the number one tool I have to guide the horse's movement to better mechanical use. It is the primary aid. It is the most important thing we can do. The leg aids, the rein aids, everything else is second to that. But if we can stay stable and we resist those pushing forces, you already start guiding her spine into better use. That's how important it is. And so
I didn't
she,
expect this.
yeah, she will rearrange and you'll feel her rearrange and she'll get, as she improves the internal straightness, a couple of things will happen. You'll feel she doesn't push on you as much. It slows down and it's not as much force. Her neck will lengthen, and then you'll feel under the bareback pad becomes very still, very easy to sit, and she just breathes and lengthens. That's the power of internal straightness.
Yeah, that's the self carriage in a sense,
Yes, yes,
at least the beginning of it. Yeah,
yes,
I would really try to do well with her, and I think I did. But
you did.
somewhere I needed, I reached a plateau. That's why I didn't want to ride her because, like, I'm not helping her.
Yeah,
When I
with
ride her, I'm just better on the ground. But I have to tell you, something happened in the last week because I know when I wrote her this a couple of days ago, this was just for you, that
mhm,
video. So I know that I didn't move as much with her, what I thought with her, as I used to, because I watched one of those videos. You mentioned something, and I'm like, I'm going to try that. And I thought it was interesting that she was wanting to actually go more forward. There was no like I want to go in a circle. I'm going to stand still. I'm not going to do anything. She was just more forward and more like, oh, that's interesting.
bingo.
So she already has in that,
Yes.
yeah,
And if you think about it from the perspectives of physics and
yeah,
forces, a horse that doesn't want to go forward is sometimes splashing their energy so much left and right, there's nothing left to go
to
forward.
go forward.
And so, what we're doing with what I call the alignment, when I mention the broomstick, it's sort of just building a channel. Like if you want more force, you
Yeah,
narrow the channel of the river,
yeah,
right? That's all internal straightness is. And we're taking away the waves that splash and shift side to side as well. And so we're basically taking the energy that she creates with the thrust of the hind legs. And this is the job of the spine and the back muscle and the pelvis is to channel forces of motion, right?
yeah.
And resist falling forward, which is part of the use. So it stabilizes those forces of motion. And when you do that, the amazing part is the function of the legs takes care of itself. I go, if we focus on the spine, the neck and all four legs sort of just figure out where they need to go.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how much of her right hind will get more with the program.
Yeah. And what you might notice in your next ride, if that is her strongest pattern, which we know it is when she tracks left, it might change when she tracks right. But going left, don't turn your head or you won't feel it. Do not look where you're going. You're going to look right between her ears. You have to keep your head straight to feel it, but you're going to start to notice how much she pushes up against your right seat bone and your right leg.
So when you say if I wanted her to go to the left, I used to, or I still do, I move my body that way from my
Yeah,
hips more. Okay.
yeah,
So not but I'm
yeah.
still moving my head, but I'm not moving my head.
Yeah,
Is
and
this
you only do it a little bit. It's probably
okay?
an old habit that you haven't worked out yet. But what's ingrained into us as riders is heels down, shoulders back, look where you're going.
Mhm.
Everybody turns their head. And if you think about your skull, spine, and pelvis absolutely sort of in line with your horse's skull, spine, and pelvis. The
Hmm.
two of you turn together. You don't want her head or your head to go farther than your seat bones,
Right.
right? The
I don't.
whole the whole thing turns as one unit.
Okay. I just
Yeah,
because you said don't turn ahead, but when I do my turns from my waist, where my if I turn to the left, my right hip goes a little forward, my waist goes left, my nose is
yeah,
next over my belly button.
yes.
That's not turning my head.
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
What I'm talking about is when people leave their torso straight and they
Oh,
turn
and
their
just
head like that.
yeah, that
If
doesn't do anything. Yeah.
Well, and actually what it does is it disconnects our ability to feel the horse. You can't feel the horse when you turn your head like that. And so people go, I have no idea what my horse is doing. I can't feel it. I go, quit turning your head. Then you'll feel it.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. I I don't have a problem with not turning my head
Yeah.
because I hate that. I don't.
Yeah.
Well,
But
I
this,
didn't expect.
I mean, Tina, this is just beautiful between you and your horse. If she had come to me like you're describing in the sales video, I would have done pretty much all the things you did intuitively because I would have to bring the fear level down, let her relax, let her find a more normal way of moving, and then I would begin the guidance right about where she looks to be now. So you're right on track to start, building up the balance a little bit. But when I get gaited horses and fearful horses, some of them take a year to calm down and just let go.
Well,
And
I got her 4 years ago. So this the first year I didn't do much. So it's been 3 years. Last year I rode her a lot more, and she seemed to actually do better when I rode her straight on the road. Because straight on the road, it seems really easy for her
mhm,
because that's what she used to. So I think so it's been 3 years basically that I've been working with her. Winters are pretty shitty. Summers are sometimes really hot, so I didn't do much in the winter
yeah.
last year. So maybe
Yeah,
altogether 2 years.
you've done a beautiful job with her. And so
No,
one of the last things I want to point out to you
yes, sorry.
is that's all right. Right here where you're about to get on, you
Hmm.
see the neck is just a little bit up,
Yeah.
right? So when the neck is in that position, she's not straight internally. So you have to figure out which side is she unlevel, which side is she bending the neck. But whenever the head and neck go up like that, it's because she lost internal straightness, either alignment or rotation. When you correct the alignment and the rotation, and she does this in the whole video, she lengthens and shortens her neck. So you're already getting it. I just want to point it out to you so that you're more aware that
Uh-huh.
when she shortens the neck like that, she is no longer either level or straight, one, the other, or both, right? When you ask her to move off pretty quickly, like just there where she wanted to reach and lengthen the neck, she's coughing a little bit. That
Yes,
im
yes, it is.
that spontaneous impulse for her to lengthen the neck, make it longer and away from you, just like that step there, is the dynamic, predictable result of the correct alignment and stabilizing the rotation, the internal straightness. It's guaranteed. It's a physical dynamic result. So you can kind of watch her neck because sometimes it's there, but we don't feel it. We have to develop a little sensitivity to the
Okay.
levelness or the straightness. But when she is true, and you'll see that it comes and goes. She'll get a stride or two, then she loses it. Then a stride or two, then she loses it. So what you're looking for is more often she's lengthening the neck rather than shortening the neck muscles.
Okay. I just saw her shortening it. Like here,
Hmm.
she's shortening it.
She does it this whole ride. Does a little bit of long, a little bit of short. Neither one is extreme. right?
Oh,
So, sorry, my cat decided to join us.
that's okay.
Um,
Hi, little cat, black cats, cute.
yes. And so you can watch that when you ride her, that if she's shortening the neck, she might look straight. You might think she's level, but she's telling you, I'm not there yet. Every step that she does lengthen the neck, notice what you feel because it will be different. She will change in the spine and the neck will change as the result.
Okay, so be a little bit more aware of what's going on
Mhm.
from her through me instead of trying to make her neck go down somehow because I thought,
Never.
so go,
No,
how can I make
never.
her neck feel better? No, don't
No,
make it. Just feel
don't.
it. Okay, I got it.
No, it's a spontaneous result. So
Ah,
it tells you,
uncontrolled.
yeah, you're not controlling it. She's
And
going to
she's,
choose it. Yeah.
or is her body suddenly being able to let go? And that's why,
Yes.
okay,
Yes. And
there she has.
so that's why your beautiful light hands and reins are so important because the only rein aid I'm going to give is only to help the neck stay straight. But when internally, when her spine, even if it's only for one stride every 15 minutes, when the alignment becomes upright and sorry, when the alignment is straight and the rotation is upright and stable, so she's level, when that is authentically happening, all horses lengthen the neck spontaneously. So
Okay,
I never cue them to lengthen the neck. I never restrict the head and neck. But it shows me on some horses, it can be hard to feel the details of the alignment or the rotation. And so as long as they're shortening the neck, I know I have to keep refining my balance.
okay. So
Okay?
right now she has a higher neck.
Yeah. You
So
see
she's, because she's,
it goes short, long the whole
yeah,
ride. Yeah.
yeah. But
And
at least I see the difference now because I would not have. So thank
yeah,
you for pointing out.
yeah,
And now I'm going to ride her with that in mind.
yes.
But
So as you play with your balance,
hmm
you're going to see your balance directly affect her balance. And kind of watching the muscles shorten, lengthen through the neck. It's kind of like the horse telling you, oh, you're getting warmer, or you're getting colder, or you're getting warmer, or you're getting colder. But
and
it is
she's been
100% guaranteed. That's what all horses do. When you get internal straightness, they all lengthen the neck, period.
and she's been telling me this probably for quite a while, and I just whoop.
Yeah. No, some of
Well,
these things that have never been pointed out to riders, I go, they're so simple and it would make all the difference. But all of our traditional training goes around and around and around the point and never gets there.
and
So,
I was never trained in a traditional way. I think I wrote to you that I didn't sit on a horse till 10 years ago.
oh yeah. Well,
So
you have very good intuition. As just a kind person who loves their horse, you have figured out quite a bit. You've done a
yeah, so
beautiful job.
thank you.
And especially Icelandics can be a little bit tough. Like when they're trained the way you said on the sales video,
Yeah,
they can be
I
a
might
little
just
bit of a tough turnaround.
yeah. She was very high-headed. She was still kind and sweet. I think she was more internal.
Yeah.
And she was very obedient, lifted every leg, lifted this, did this, but she was never there. And then I
Yes.
started sitting with her and reading a book and hanging out, and she started opening up. And
Yes.
I think I didn't write her for the first year and a half.
That's just beautiful, Tina,
Yeah. So,
because I go, so many people get in a hurry and they don't want to actually bond with their horse. I go, they want to get a bunch of things done, but
right.
that time is so powerful. And
It's,
it's really people underestimate it because to me, it's necessary before you can actually improve movement. I
Yeah,
go, people who are trying to improve movement on a horse that's scared or stressed out or doesn't want to be with you, I go, that's why we don't see a lot of good movement is because you can't get there
right.
from there.
And
It,
I don't want to force her to do anything. To me, it's like I want to guide her. Have I
yes.
forced her? Probably. Uh, have I been frustrated about her? Yeah, because
Yeah.
you did it yesterday. Why can't you do that today? Well, good. She has bad days like you do.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I've learned a lot. So she taught me a lot.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, this was, I expected to hear that you see the long reining, and yes, that's the best way to do. Start from the beginning, and I'm really, excited, a little proud, and
Yeah, you
and
should be proud.
because I didn't feel I'm doing her any justice with writing, but maybe I do.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think the I think you would get, whoops, sorry. I think you would get a lot more out of the long reins after you work on this riding her.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't always recommend it that way, but you guys just have so many of what I would consider kind of the cornerstone ingredients in place that you're all prepared just from what we talked about today. You're going to start getting really noticeable changes from her very quickly because
Okay.
all the right foundational steps are in place. So I'm happy to teach you the long reins. I have a workbook on it, but I just think the two of you would understand it better by
If
through
we do it by
reading first.
writing. Oh my gosh, yes, because I wanted to write, but I'm like, nope, nope, I'm not doing this to her. I'm not going to screw up more. And I don't know what I'm doing. And I didn't know, but now I have, yeah.
Yeah. And
So you didn't give,
stay in the bareback pad, stay in the bitless side
yeah,
pull. All of
yeah,
that
I'm not,
works right now. It's no big
yeah,
deal. And and when you get yourself a little bit more vertical, you'll find maybe uh your weight is less in the seat and more evenly distributed through your body, which will also make it easier for her to carry you.
yeah. I didn't think I had my weight in the seat, but now that, I hear that and I'm thinking of it, I'm going
Yeah.
to sit on it. And well, this
Yeah.
is awesome. I really
Good.
appreciate it. Gosh,
Let me hit the stop record.
yes.